a difference. We thank God for all that he's doing. Thank God. Our times, the times that we are living in, they are challenging times.
Yes, they are.
But they are in no stretch the most challenging and the most difficult times that have come about on the face of the planet. When we think about some of the things that our ancestors have gone through and those who have come before us, the thought comes to you that you have no real cause to complain. Things are so much better and easier for you than it is and was for them. And if they can make it, you can make it. Now, one of the things, this being Youth Sunday, one of the things that I was praying, Lord, the young people seem to have taken some hits this week. And I wanted to sort of find a way to speak to the youth and speak to the young people. And Lord, what would you have me to say to the young people, as well as encourage those among us who are a little bit more senior? And as I was thinking about it, I was going through the week and looking at different things and asking God what he would have me to say. And there are different things that he would make sure that I saw, and different things that he impressed upon my mind and upon my spirit in terms of mark these things. So one of the things that I saw, I was watching a portion of the March on Washington. Both the historical march as well as the march that just happened over this weekend. It was on the 28th. Where they literally said that, it was the 57th anniversary of the March on Washington. And they were calling it a march for commitment to do something. And they styled it as part of this march. The message is to get your knee off our neck. And so you're watching this, and people are saying that literally, if you listen to a lot of the things that were being complained about, from the police brutality and the treatment and the systemic racism and all the inequities, it was like, this is the same stuff that was in the speeches that were given 57 years ago. A lot of the things that they were dealing with back then, we're still dealing with now. And one of the young people, as I said, this Youth Sunday, managed to say to one of the king's children, saying, Grandpa already fought this fight. Why are we still dealing with this? Meaning the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he marched and he fought so that we wouldn't still have to be dealing with this. Here it is in my generation, we still fighting this. Why are we still fighting the battles that Granddaddy fought? I said, oh my God. And the young people are mindful of this. They start showing pictures of young people with signs and statements indicating that my life matters. Literally with signs saying Black Lives Matter. And it was black children as well as white children carrying these signs, as well as Hispanic children, trying to drive home the message that if you truly believe that all lives matter, then black lives must matter. The statement that all lives matter can't be realized until you say black lives matter. They don't matter any more, but they don't matter any less than any other life. And as long as you're treating the black life as having no true significance, that you can treat it as less than and other than human, then you can't truly say that all lives matter. And your fallback to saying that is really a distraction or a way of you deflecting from trying to recognize that the black life matters. One of the young white children had signs and began to indicate that my life can't truly reach its full potential until the life of my brother, meaning my black brother, is viewed as mattering, that it has to matter. And I said, you know, this is some heavy stuff for young people to be wrestling with at you know, I'm talking preteen age. You know, 8, 9, and 10-year-olds talking and wrestling with these issues. And it reminded me of this scene I saw when it was dealing with Selma, the March on Selma, and we were talking about John Lewis, and it was these young children who were there, and the cop bent down and said, now why are you here? And the young child said, because I want freedom. And there were children who they were arresting, and children who they were doing the water hoses on, and children who they were putting dogs on back then. Nowadays, there are children who they're pepper spraying, and children who they're, you know, using the flash grenades, and children who they running off the street in the same way. Some 57 years later. And then, as I'm watching this, and God just saying, mark these things, you know, we see the father of Jacob Blake, who began to tell the story of how he had to talk to his grandchildren who were there and witnessed their father being shot. Wanting to know when daddy gonna be able to come home, and how come they shot my daddy like that? Now Jacob Blake is the young man who was shot 7 times in the back by police officers, which has spurred another rash of civil unrest and protest and some violence in the streets. And we got young people who want to know, why did it have to come to this? And the older generation began to make statements like, I'm tired. One of them said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. They began to say, enough is enough. We tired of this foolishness. Now, I understand the frustration, and I understand the pain, but God began to say, you got to be careful here. Because the message that we want to deliver to our young people can't be that it's all right to be tired and throw up your hands now. Now is not the time to give up. and make it seem like the odds have been so stacked against me that I can't make it. That no matter what I do, they still treat me this way. Why should I try? Now is not the time to lose hope for a better day. Now is not the time to lose hope for a brighter tomorrow. Says we got to be careful right here. We got to maintain and hold on to our hope. Or another way of saying it, we got to hold on to our faith. Because it says in the scriptures in Hebrews the 11th chapter, it starts off, it says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, and it's the evidence of things not seen. So you got to have faith that things are going to get better. Faith to know that God is with you, and that if God is with you because of Christ, if you believe in Christ, you said, through Christ all things are possible. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I don't care what they're saying, how they're trying to stop my progress. Now, I'm seeing this, and then as I saw that scene, I saw another scene. I was scrolling through social media, and I discovered that one of our young heroes, who so many had attached some positive attributes to, that the soldier, the young hero, had passed on. And I'm talking about Brother Chadwick Boseman. You know, when many of our young people came into the knowledge of Chadwick, he was playing a superhero in terms of the Black Panther. And all of a sudden we saw young people who began to take pride in black culture and celebrate the fact that they saw a black hero and thought that things were possible, and they were all happy saying, Wakanda forever. And they showed this image of literally some young black boys who had their toys of superheroes. And they had the Black Panther toy laying down flat as if though he had died and everybody had surrounded him. And the young black boys had tears running down their faces. As if to say, our hero just died. This symbol, this icon that we were celebrating, who was giving us some strength to think that I too am a king and can be a king, and I can rise above my circumstance, and I can be like Black Panther, and I can be like this young brother who was out there and had achieved so much in such a short period of time. That I can be just like him. And a lot of them, that was their favorite little costume when they was dressing up. They were dressing up like the Black Panther. That was their thing, and they were happy. And everybody went to the movies and put on dashikis and African garb, celebrating black and African culture. And God is saying, don't just look at the fact that he left here, but look at how he left. He says, look at the fact that many of the films and things that you want to celebrate him for, and many of the awards that he received, and many of all the accolades and all the things where all the young people were praising him, he did all of that while he was fighting cancer. all the movies that were released with him playing Black Panther, this strong superhero. He shot those while he was fighting cancer. Many of his recent films that he recently put out continued to work. In between chemotherapy and surgeries, he put all these movies out there in this great body of work. And nobody knew that he was fighting cancer outside of his immediate circle. In other words, folk didn't spread his business. And he fought the good fight. He continued, he occupied all the way up until the end. Until he got ready to leave. And God began to talk to me. He said, now look. See, sometimes we get so caught up into thinking that, oh, I got a little something that I'm dealing with, so that means I ain't got to do nothing now. Everybody can take pity on me. And, you know, we get the slightest bit of pain or ailment, we want to tell everybody. So everybody can feel sorry for me. He says, oftentimes, whether they be young or old, there are a lot of people who are dealing with stuff. But that's not an excuse for them to do nothing. So then, as I was thinking about that, and thinking about the accomplishments of this young man, it just continued to sit on my heart and mind of, he did all of that while fighting cancer, undergoing chemotherapy and surgeries and all of this stuff.
It's not easy.
Every day, I mean, and had a prolific career, and everybody celebrating him and wanting him on the red carpet and praising him, and we all saying, "Ooh, I wish I was him," and the women thinking, "Oh, he's so sexy," and all this stuff, and this man's fighting for his life.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
The young people took some hits this week. And he said, but part of the legacy of someone like Chadwick Boseman is to let you know that regardless of what you are dealing with, you can still make a difference and do your best. Nothing gives you an excuse to sit on the sideline. Nothing provides justification for you to just phone it in, as they say, or say, I ain't coming, or I can't do it because I got this stuff, other stuff I'm dealing with. Sometimes you got to just gird up your loins. You got to bind it all up and get up from there. Go on and do what God called you to do. I mean, even Brother Paul at one point, he started saying he had this thorn in the flesh. And Lord, remove this thorn. And Lord, take it from me. And Lord, and God began to say, my grace is sufficient. Paul had to go and do all that he did while dealing with the thorn. Sometimes God's not going to take it away. Sometimes you got to work with whatever it is you're dealing with. And newsflash, sometimes folks don't want to hear about your problems. I mean, you know, just go, oh, I'm dealing with this child, and they don't want to hear all that. They just want to know, can you do what I called you to do? You got to make up your mind that I'm going to get this job done. Now, so then he said, I want you to look a little bit at Luke, the Gospel of Luke, the 19th chapter. And there's this interesting parable. I mean, we've heard different versions of it, but I wanted to talk about this version in particular for a little bit. This is Luke, the 19th chapter, and we started about the 12th verse. Luke 19:12. It says, he said, therefore, a certain nobleman went into a far country to receive for himself a kingdom and to return. And he called his 10 servants and delivered them 10 pounds and said unto them, occupy till I come. In other words, do business. Do what I told you to do. Be productive. Be fruitful. Occupy till I come. Now, in this particular parable, there are 10 servants, and each one gets the same exact 1 pound. 14th verse. But his citizens hated him and sent a message after him, saying, we will not have this man to reign over us. 15th verse. And it came to pass that when he was returned, having received the kingdom, then he commanded these servants to be called unto him, to whom he had given the money, that he might know how much every man had gained by trading. So now, regardless of how they felt about that leader, regardless of how you feel about your president or about your government, the command is still to occupy, to do business. You can't say, child, them folk in Washington, they ain't doing nothing for, I ain't gonna do nothing. Child, they still owe me. I'm waiting on my 40 acres and a mule, child. I'm going to go out there and get me a check. Where my stimulus at? God said, you're supposed to be doing business. Now, the 16th verse says, then came the first, saying, Lord, thy pound hath gained 10 pounds. So he took the 1 and turned it into 10. Now, 17th verse. And he said unto him, well, thou good servant, because thou hast been faithful in a very little, have thou authority over 10 cities. And the second came, saying, Lord, thy pound hath gained 5 pounds. And he said likewise to him, be thou also over 5 cities. Now, it says, and another came, saying, Lord, behold, here is thy pound, which I have kept laid up in a napkin. For I feared thee, because thou art an austere man. Thou takest up that thou layest not down, and reapest that thou didst not sow. And he said unto him, listen, out of thine own mouth will I judge thee, thou wicked servant. Thou knewest that I was an austere man, taking up that I laid not down, and reaping that I did not sow. Wherefore then gavest not thou my money into the bank, that at my coming I might have required mine own with usury or interest? In other words, he's saying, look, you have no excuse not to be productive. or have some knowledge about the one who gave you the command. He told him, at the very least, you should have put my money in the bank so I can get some interest on my money. You just said, take back what I gave you. You know, you gave me this, here it is, I'm giving it right back to you in the same way. He said, that just shows me slothfulness. He called them wicked. So God began to say to me, in the same way that this nobleman who left expected people to occupy or do business till he returned, when Christ left, he told each of us to occupy until he comes, until he returns. Same thing with our young people. We tell them that you need to occupy, need to do business, need to be productive. There is no excuse to point to somebody else and say, because of them, I can't do anything. You know, in terms of to my African American or black brothers and sisters, that whole concept of, oh, I can't get something done because of the white man, time out for all that. They don't control your success or failure. They don't control your future. God is in control. But you gotta work. You gotta have the faith to hope that if you put your shoulder to the wheel, God will put his super on your natural. And you'll see supernatural results and benefits. You'll be able to see progress made despite the obstacles that you have to overcome. And just like the man who played T'Challa, despite the obstacles and the burdens and the hurdles, you'll be able to accomplish and achieve much. And you'll be just like some of the old pioneers who will say, my soul looks back how I got over. I don't know how I made it. You'll be like some of the more recent psalmists who said that without God, that you never would have made it. It's because God says, I'm with you. I see that the struggle is difficult. And now, I hear the notion, some of them saying, like, yay, but in that scenario, all of them got the same thing, but what if I didn't get what the other ones got? So he said, I got something for you. He said, turn to the Gospel of Matthew, 25th chapter. So let me tell you the same story, but a slightly different way. Starting at the 14th verse, it says, for the kingdom is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants, and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey. Now, understand, this is the same scenario. I'm giving folk money to occupy till I come. But now I recognize that everybody doesn't have the same ability. My only requirement is that you use what I gave you. See, in this parable of these 10 talents, the one who had 5 doubled it to 10, and the one who had 2 went to 5, and the one who had 1 did like that other guy and hid it and didn't do anything with it. who received the talent and didn't do anything with it, again he calls him wicked. So it's not about, do I have as much as the other fella? Oh, they got all these privileges. You know, the new thing is, oh, we talk about white privilege. Yeah, they got some privileges. But that doesn't mean that you can't be successful. That doesn't mean that you can't achieve much. I mean, I really enjoyed watching this wonderful movie called Hidden Figures, which talked about 3 African American women during the time when we were trying to get into outer space. Now, these 3 women were brilliant mathematicians. I did say they were African American women, right?
Yes.
Now, despite fighting segregation and discrimination and folk not only dealing with racial bias, they were dealing with gender bias and a whole lot of other stuff. It turned out that because of them, we were able to get a man into space and back home. Because of them, we were able to put somebody on the moon and get them back. So much so that these ladies now, they have buildings for NASA named after them. Now, in the movie, they showed you just a little bit of the struggle. Couldn't even go to the same bathroom with the other white folk and all kinds of stuff. They showed you a little bit of the struggle, but that didn't stop them from achieving great things. They didn't say, well, since they won't let me do, and I can't have the same thing as the other folk, I ain't going to do nothing. They used what they had. They let God put the super on top of their natural. And they achieved great things. So God starts saying, we got to encourage these young people that no matter what you are fighting against, what you're dealing with, don't give up. Don't stop. It may take you longer, but you keep on going. Don't throw up your hands. Whatever it is, don't quit. Because you can make it. If you continue to hold on to hope, continue to hope against hope, continue to say that with God, all things are possible. No matter how dark it gets, no matter how bleak it looks, you can say, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. It gets dark sometimes, but I know that God gonna shine the light sooner or later. We got to teach these young people to hold on. Now as they're getting ready to go back to school in Miami-Dade County. They just started back in Broward County. Some at different schools going in person and others trying to do it online. They got all this stress and all of these frustrations, and some would say, I'm ready to throw up my hands. I don't know what doing school. Wasn't all that crazy about the old way of doing school. Now y'all want me to get online and try to get this lesson? It's easier for me to just play a video game. When y'all think I'm working, I can just be enjoying myself. Now is the time for us to encourage them, don't quit. Get the lesson that's being taught. Learn the new way. Learn how to do it online. Endure if you got to go in person. Take the necessary precautions. Don't let nothing stop you or stand in the way of you getting what you need to move forward. Yes, there is some injustice in the world. Yes, there are folk who are being See, when we look at Hebrews like we were talking about before, the scriptures begin to tell us about that hall of fame of faith with all of these great patriarchs who had gone on before, who had endured all of these things, starting dealing with Abel and Abraham and going on to Solomon and you name them. It began to tell you about the faith that they had. And then, as it's going through, it says some of them, they lost their lives. They were sawn asunder. They had to go through great suffering. But they achieved a greater reward in a far more eternal weight of glory. And they went through some things. Then sometimes you got to go through some things. In the words of John Lewis, he said you got to sometimes get into good trouble. Resisting letting someone make you feel less than. Saying, look, I'm pushing and I'm fighting for what's right and what's just. I'm not going to let nobody turn me around. They used to sing that song as they were marching. I ain't going to let nobody turn me around. They started saying that we shall overcome. They held on to that statement of faith that we shall overcome. They said, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome. You got to hold on. You got to say, Lord, I hear you. I trust you. I'm depending on you to see me through. I don't care what comes up. John Lewis got cracked in the head and was bleeding, and he still continued on. Later became a congressman and a civil rights icon. Folk have endured some things.
Yes, they have.
You got to get rid of this notion that people just gonna hand you stuff. That somehow people just gonna feel sorry and just make it, oh, I'm just gonna give it to you. There's a statement that says power conceives nothing without demand. You got to make a demand. You got to put some work in. Scriptures even let you know that faith without works is dead. Being alone. You got to do some working. So to our young people, I know you've taken some hits. You've seen some atrocities. You said, oh my God, we're still wrestling with some things. You've seen some heroes fall. But God has said, and is saying to you, that's no reason for you to give up. No reason for you to throw in the towel. No reason for you to stop trying. No reason for you to believe you can't make it. You got to see that these people, even while they were dealing with everything that they had to go through, they still were struggling and reaching and striving to make things better for you. If Brother Bozeman can get up every morning, despite needing treatment, despite all he's going through and do all these heroic scenes, they got him running and jumping and fighting. And, I mean, he from doing 21 bridges to you name the movie. He still carried on despite what he's dealing with. God began to just impress upon me that we, as a people, as saints of God, we got to press on and press through, relying and depending on Him, but understanding it may not come easy. But if we trust God, it'll come. See, He didn't promise you smooth sailing, but He did promise you a safe land. Sometimes the storms are going to come, sown the seeds. But there's a reason why he's letting you deal with the struggle. The struggle is getting you ready for things to come, and it's making you strong and making you better. Letting you know you can handle and deal with more than you thought. And if you got to go through it, God knows that you are able to handle it. So you say, Lord, I thank you for your faith and confidence in me, but I'm going to need you to give me the strength to go through. We can't give up. Only for change. You don't have to go out there and commit crimes. This is all of this stuff. None of it should stop you. You should be able to continue to do better, to achieve more, regardless of what you're struggling with and facing. You know, one of the things that concerns some people is that at a certain point in time, some of the folk who we are calling allies and some folk who are not allies, some of them might just eventually get tired. I'm tired of hearing about everything happening to them black folk out there. Right? At some point, they start saying, suck it up. You got to get to a place where you start saying, look, I'm going to keep telling you what you're doing wrong, but I'm not going to let that stop me from doing what I need to do. If I got to go to work and work this job in order to get the money to pay my bills, I'm going to work this job. I'm not going to talk about, child, them folk ain't treat me right, so I ain't going there to work. You going to get fired. I'm protesting. I'm a boycott. Okay, you boycott your job, you lose it. You got to do what you got to do. You got to trust God in these situations. You got to rely and depend on him and say, Lord, you see. As we said, you see and you know. God can prosper you regardless of the circumstance. Daniel was in captivity, and God prospered him. Him and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. While they were in captivity, they got to be rulers. You could be going through. Joseph was sold as a slave. Got to the place where he's running the house of Potiphar. Then had the man's wife lie on him. Got stuck in the prison. Because God was with him, he got to a place where he's running the prison. And then overnight, he goes from the prison to the palace and becomes the second in command behind Pharaoh because God was with him. God can prosper you in any situation if you continue to trust him. Now, Joseph could have said, man, my brothers done sold me into slavery. This ain't right. I'm going to sit here and have my own personal pity party. I ain't going to do nothing. Call them and get me out. A little more recent history, Nelson Mandela was put into prison. He did what he needed to do to keep himself in good shape, to keep his mind active, to get, little bits of concessions from the prison guards. Over time, from just getting able to wear a pair of long pants. He did what he needed to do. And when he was finally brought out, before we know it, before too long, he was the president of the country. Because he endured. And he held on to hope and to faith. So God said, hold on. Tell the young people, hold on. Keep trying. Don't quit. Tell the older folk, hold on. Now is not the time to give up and throw up your hands. All at the child, I put my time in. I'm getting a little older now. I ain't got to do nothing. I'm just waiting on the Lord. He says, no. Occupy till I come, not till you get tired. Says, I'll tell you when it's time to come home. When it's time to come home, I'll call you off the battlefield. But until then, you occupy. Do business. Yes, even in your current condition, I don't care what illness, ailment, or whatever you got, there's something that God says I got for you to do. And newsflash, if you would do more, God would give you more strength. See, he provides provision for the vision. If you would run with the vision, he would give you more provision. That includes your own personal health. Why does he need to strengthen you to sit? Why does he need to give you more if you ain't going to do nothing with it? Why would he give you more talents if all you're going to do is bury that in the earth too? Or stick it in a napkin and do nothing with it? Scriptures point out that him that got shall get. The ones who use what they got, he'll give more. He gives seed to the sower, not to the one who's trying to hoard it and keep it all to themselves. God starts saying, you got to occupy until I come. So to all our young people, those young in heart and young in mind, young in spirit, God is saying to all of you, occupy until I come. Let nothing stop you from the forward movement, forward progress, and press towards the mark. You haven't attained everything that you want to attain. Like Paul said, I count not myself to have apprehended. I haven't grasped what I'm trying to get to. He says, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind. He says, I press towards the mark, towards the prize of the high calling in Christ Jesus. He's pressing. God says he was pressing, he's moving forward. That's what he wants all of us to do. From the young to the old, now is not the time to throw up our hands and give up and have our own personal pity party and say, woe is me. Now's the time to gird up your loins and do what God called you to do. Occupy till he comes. Amen?